Good day, class. Welcome to our lecture today on CAO 1-2022, which governs the customs banded warehouses or the CB under the CMT. Okay, so make sure you have your notebooks ready as we will cover key definitions and operational rules that you will see in the board exam and actions. Okay, so let's start with the background. So this CAO consolidates all existing rules on CBWs and implements key provisions on of the RA 10863 or the CNTA. Okay, so the section 1 tells us the scope. This applies to all types of CBWs listed under the CMTA, plus any new warehouse types that the Secretary of Finance may create upon the recommendation of the Commissioner. Okay, so think of CAO 2022 as the single rule book or the master guide for all customs banded warehouses in the Philippines. Okay, so for example, if a company wants to set up a brand new type of specialized warehouse for the EV batteries, as long as the Secretary of Finance approves it upon the Commissioner of the Bureau of Customs recommendation. Okay, so it falls under this scope. So why do we have CAO 1 2022? Okay, so the section 2 lays out the 6 main objectives. It provides clear guidelines for the operating CBWs and also safeguard the government revenue and prevent smuggling. Okay, and also it define rights and duties of the operators, members, and subcontractors. And it improve compliance and enforce penalties. And also modernize tracking via the ICT-based raw materials management system. And also align our customs operations with the international standards. Okay, so the main goal is balancing trade facilitation with the revenue protection. Okay, we want businesses to thrive duty-free, but the Bureau of Customs must ensure that raw materials are not leaked into the local market unpaid. Okay, so for example, using automated tracking system just to ensure Bureau of Customs knows exactly how many yards of fabric entered a warehouse and how many finished t-shirts left in the country. Okay? Next. Okay, so in the trade and manufacturing, accessories are items imported to complete, enhance, and or add functional or aesthetic value to a product before it gets re-exported. So they are not raw materials, or they are not the main fabric or even metal or substance used to make the base product. So those are not raw materials. While not general supplies, they are not consumables like machine oil, packing tape, or cleaning agents used in the factory. So instead, they are secondary items attached directly to the product or included with the final product to improve its quality, look, or usability. So for example, let's say a garment manufacturer operating inside the CBW in the Philippines that exports high-end jackets going to Europe. Okay, so the raw materials there is the main denim or the leather fabric used to sew the jacket body. And the supplies is the machine oil for the sewing machines and also the thread or the shipping boxes, right? And the accessories is those decorative metallic zipper, no, na inimport pa from other country, and also yung branded rubber patches, no? So those are the accessories. And yung spare replacement ng buttons, no? Na nakapackage with the jacket. So those are the accessories. So why it matters in customs? The company imports these accessories duty-free under the CBW system because they will attach to the finished jackets and ship out of the country. So or they are being exported, no, to the other countries. Next. Okay, so an accountable officer is the designated person inside a CBW who is personally and legally responsible to the Bureau of Customs for everything that happens inside the warehouse facility. Okay, so if goods go missing, if unauthorized inventory is stored, or if customs duties are paid, the Bureau of Customs holds this designated individual accountable, not just the company name as a whole. No? So the key characteristics of this accountable officer. Okay, so the named and designated by the warehouse operator or it is the owner and must be a responsible official or manager within the warehouse, and he or she serves as the primary point of contact for legal and operational compliance with the Bureau of Customs. So, for example, the Logitech Global Logistics. So, let's say there's a company or a CBW operator, the Logitech Global Logistics, operates a bonded warehouse storing imported electronic parts that are imported duty-free for re-export. Okay, so the owner or the operator of that company, the Logitech Global Logistics, designates Maria as the operations manager, or Maria is the operations manager of the company, and the owner of the Logitech Global Logistics designates Maria as the accountable officer also. Okay? And if a surprise customs audit reveals that 50 imported microchips are missing from the warehouse without proper export documentation or tax payments, Maria is the official held legally answerable to the Bureau of Customs for the discrepancy and any resulting penalties or explanations required. Right? So, Maria is the operations manager of the company, and also she is the accountable officer. Right? Next, an accredited client or end user is an individual or company, natural or juridical person, officially recognized and also approved by the Bureau of Customs to receive raw materials or goods imported through an industry-specific customs bonded warehouse. So instead of running its own bonded warehouse, the client uses an ICBW tailored specifically to their industry. For example, semiconductor or textile or aviation supply to source duty-free imported components needed for the manufacturing or assembly. For example, an ICBW operates to supply raw materials exclusively to electronics assembly businesses in the Philippines. Okay? So their client is the Solar Tech Philippines. So that client wants to receive imported solar cell components from this ICBW without paying import duties upfront. Okay? Then the process is the company or the client, the Solar Tech itself registers with and gets approved by the Bureau of Customs as an accredited client and user. Okay, so once approved, they can legally pull imported solar components out of this ICBW, okay, and assemble solar panels in their own factory and export the finished panels abroad tax-free. Okay? Next, an accredited client exporter is a registered local exporter that has been officially approved by the Bureau of Customs to buy or receive finished goods or semi-finished products produced inside a miscellaneous customs banded warehouse, which they will then use for their own export operations. Okay? So in trade, companies often collaborate in supply chains. The MCBWs, they import duty-free raw materials and manufacturers intermediate or finished products, and the accredited client exporters. So they receives those products from the MCBW and integrates them into their final export product or handles the direct export. For example, the MCBW producer, no? An MCBW company in Batangas imports raw leather and metal buckles duty-free to manufacture high-end handbag straps. So the exporter, the Lux Philippines, is a luxury bag exporter. So they apply and become an accredited client exporter with the Bureau of Customs. And their transactions, no? The Lux company buys the finished handbag straps directly from the MCBW tax-free, right? And attaches them to their handcrafted leather bags and exports the complete bags or the finished product to retail stores in Japan. Because they are an accredited client exporter, the tax-free status of the materials remains intact throughout the domestic transfer. Okay? Next. Okay, so airlines, customs banded warehouse, and airlines catering customs banded warehouse. So these are specialized industry-specific warehouses located near or within airports. So they allow airlines companies to store imported items duty-free and tax-free, right? Provided those items are used exclusively for international flights. Okay, so the aircraft itself, its flight crew, or its passengers. Okay, since international flights leave the Philippine airspace, the items consumed abroad or the items consumed inside the airplane or the aircraft or used to maintain the aircraft are treated like exports. Okay? So they are not entering the local Philippine market for local consumers. Okay? So, for example, so the Philippine Airlines, let's say the Philippine Airlines or the Cebu Pacific imports 1,000 pre-packaged in-flight gourmet meals from France, and 100 replacement tires for Boeing aircraft from Japan. How it works. So instead of paying customs duties and taxes at the port, these goods are directly transferred to the airline catering customs bonded warehouse at NAIA. Okay, so what's the outcome? As long as the meals are served to the passengers flying to Tokyo or Los Angeles, and the tires are installed on planes flying international routes, no local import taxes or duties are paid because the goods are used for international travel. Okay? Next, alert order. An alert order is like a red flag or emergency stop sign raised by the Bureau of Customs. So when an importer submits their official import paperwork, meaning the lodgement of the goods declaration, but before the goods actually leave the port, customs officials might receive derogatory information, such, let's say, a tip-off or suspicious discrepancy, or even high-risk alert that something illegal or non-compliant is happening. Okay? An alert order freezes the cargo in customs custody. So the authorized officers can physically inspect or even hold or re-examine the shipment to check for the violation of the CMTA. Okay? So who issues the alert order? The Commissioner of Customs, even the district collector or the authorized officers. And when is it issued? After the goods declaration is lodged, but before the goods are physically released. And why is it issued? Based on the suspicious information regarding the potential smuggling, even the misdeclaration, undervaluation, or illegal goods. Okay? So for example, a local importer declares a shipping container holding the 1,000 boxes of plastic toys and valued at $2,000 to pay minimal duties. So the trigger here is the intelligence officer receive a tip-off or merong derogatory information that the container actually holds high-end smuggled smartphones worth $200,000. Diba? So what will be the action? No? Before the container is allowed to leave the container yard, the district collector places an alert order on the shipment. Okay? So what will be the result? The shipment is immediately locked down and the customs officers perform a physical 100% inspection or examination. If smuggled phones are found inside that container, the goods are seized and the importer faces legal charges under the CMTA. Okay? Next, authority to operate. All right, so an authority to operate is essentially the official license, permit, or legal approval granted by the Bureau of Customs to a business or individual, natural or juridical person, right? So without this official permit, no company is legally allowed to set up or run a customs bonded warehouse. Okay, so think of it like a driver's license or a professional operating license. Okay, having a large building or warehouse space is not enough. Store imported raw materials, supplies, or goods without paying immediate duties and taxes, the business must first prove to customs that it meets all the security, administrative, and legal requirements. Okay, so once the Bureau of Customs verifies everything, they issue the authority to operate, officially opening the facility as a recognized CBW. For example, the Global Tech builds a brand new $2 million storage facility near the port of Subic. So they want to operate as a bonded warehouse so foreign electronic manufacturers can store component parts there duty-free before export. So the problem is, even though their building is complete and secured, they cannot legally receive any imported duty-free goods yet. Okay? Doing so would be considered illegal storage and smuggling. So what will be the process of the global tech? So the global tech will submit an application to the Bureau of Customs, post the required customs bond or the insurance or the guaranteed, and undergoes physical warehouse inspections. Right? So the Bureau of Customs approves their application and grants them an official document, which is the authority to operate. So what will be the outcome? If they have authority to operate in hand, Global Tech can now legally open its door and also receive incoming shipments of the duty-free raw materials and even store or supply them for export assembly, right? Next, an authority to transfer or sell is an official permit issued by the district collector or customs. Right. So it also allows a CBW to move or sell its duty-free goods or their raw materials or even semi-finished goods or finished products to another authorized entity within the export supply chain without triggering immediate import taxes. Normally, if duty-free imported goods leave a bonded warehouse and enter the local market, taxes must be paid immediately. However, an ATS or the authority to transfer or sell serves as a legal pass, no? Showing customs that the goods are simply moving to another party who will also use them for subsequent export. Okay? Okay, so this ATS is used when moving or selling goods to another CBW or to an accredited client exporter or an accredited client or end user, right? So if you are moving your goods or selling your goods to another CBW, you need to have a transfer or sale or the ATS. Okay? And for the or even a Freeport zone locator. For example, Subic or Clark locators. Right? So that's also included. And the authority to transfer only, no sale. No? This is used when the goods are merely being sent for processing and will return or stay within the same operational loop, such as transfers to subcontractors, no? Sending fabric to an outside shop just to be embroidered, or even the members of the customs common bonded warehouse. Right? So, ang kailangan lang is the authority to transfer only. Walang sale. Okay? For example, For example, the textile manufacturing CBW in Cebu, nag-import ng duty-free cotton yarn. So they process it into raw denim fabric. What will be the transaction? A garment company located inside the Clark Freeport zone wants to buy this denim fabric to make jeans or export to Europe. So before moving the denim fabric out of the Cebu warehouse, the textile manufacturing CBW applies for an authority to transfer or sell from the district collector. Right? So once the ATS is approved by the district collector, the fabric is legally shipped from Cebu going to Clark tax-free. Right? So customs knows the chain of custody is maintained. Okay, and the duties remain suspended because the final jeans will be exported abroad. Next, AIMS, or the Automated Inventory Management System, is a digital tracking software required by the Bureau of Customs for customs bonded warehouses. So instead of relying on manual paper logbooks, AIMS acts like a real-time digital monitor for all imported raw materials stored inside a CBW. Alright, so it tracks every step of a raw material's life cycle. Okay? So when the imported duty-free materials arrive and enter the warehouse, from the entry, from the going to storage and processing, up until the liquidation. Okay, so papasok kayo dyan sa AIMS. For the entry, no, when imported duty-free materials arrive and enter the warehouse, matatrack yan dyan sa AIMS. Storage and processing. So when the materials sit in inventory or are used in manufacturing, track yan sa AIMS. And for the liquidation, when the finished goods are exported and the warehouse proves to customs that all imported raw materials were either legally exported, transferred, or accounted for, thereby canceling or liquidating the pending tax liability. For example, electronics assembly factory operating as a CBW in Laguna nag-import ng $100,000 worth of microchips duty-free. So what will be the first step? Arrival or the entry. So as soon as the container arrives at the warehouse, the inventory is scanned into the AIMS. Okay? So the customs officers can instantly see in their system that 10,000 units of microchips enter the warehouse under warehousing entry number 12345. Right? Next is the processing. So over the next 2 months, 8,000 microchips are assembled into smart appliances, while the remaining 2,000 remain in stock. Okay? The digital inventory updates automatically in AIMS. Next, export and liquidation. So the factory exports the completed smart appliances to Australia. Right? So the export declaration details are entered into AIMS, matching the 8,000 exported chips to the original 10,000 exported units. So the result is the customs will review the digital audit trail in AIMS and officially liquidates the entry, confirming that no input duties are owed because the raw material successfully left the country as exported finished goods. Next, Automated Bonds Management System or ABMS. This ABMS is an electronic monitoring system used by the Bureau of Customs to manage and also track and released customs bonds. First, what is a customs bond? When a customs bonded warehouse imports a raw materials without paying immediate duties and taxes, the customs requires a financial guarantee or a bond issued by an accredited insurance or surety company. Okay, so this bond acts like a security deposit, guaranteeing that if the company fails to re-export the finished goods, the government can claim the unpaid duties and taxes from the bond. Okay, how ABMS works. So instead of managing physical paper bonds, the ABMS digitizes and automates the entire process. Okay, from bond posting and charging. So when the duty-free raw materials are imported, the ABMS automatically charges or deducts the estimated duty amount against the importer's active bond balance. Also, as to the monitoring, no? The ABMS tracks the active status, the validity, and remaining available balance of the bond in real time. And as to the cancellation and or release, no? Once the finished products are exported and the import entry is liquidated or cleared, the ABMS automatically cancels or releases the bond charge, freeing up that credit limit so that the importer can use it for their next import shipment. For example, Precision Electronics, ECBW, they post a 10 million peso general transshipment or warehousing bond with the Bureau of Customs. So the company imports 2 million peso worth of duty and taxes equivalent microchips. Right? So the ABMS records this import entry and locks or reserves the 2 million from their total bond balance, leaving them with an active available bond balance of 8 million pesos. Okay, so the precision or the company converts the microchips into smart sensors and exports all of them to South Korea. So that's manufacturing and re-export. And as to the liquidation and bond cancellations, the company will submit proof of export. So once customs verifies and liquidates the entry in the system, the ABMS cancels the 2 million pesos bond charge. As a result, their available bond balance goes back up to 10 million pesos. Right? So allowing them to import their next batch of raw materials without needing to purchase a brand new bond policy. Next, Bureau. Whenever the word Bureau is mentioned in this document and across customs regulations in the country, it specifically refers to the Bureau of Customs. In legal and administrative documents, repeating full titles over and over makes the text cluttered. Okay, so defining bureau in the definition of term sections allows the documents to simply say bureau throughout its entire pages while making sure everyone knows it strictly means the Bureau of Customs. Okay? Okay, so the core role in trade and importation of the Bureau of Customs. So the BOC is the primary government agency attached to the Department of Finance. They are tasked with assessing and collecting customs duties, taxes, and fees on the imported goods, and also border protection and control to prevent smuggling and illegal imports. Lastly, the trade facilitation by regulating and supervising customs banded warehouses, those of free ports and port operations. Okay, next. Okay, so while authority to operate in section 3.7 refers to the grant or right given to operate, the certificate of authority to operate is the official physical document or the license certificate issued by the bureau that proves a business has that legal right. Okay, so think of it like a driver's license card or framed business permit hanging on a wall. It is directly signed by the Commissioner of Customs and certifies that an individual or company, natural or juridical person is authorized to act as a CBW operator or as an accredited member of a customs common bonded warehouse or even an accredited subcontractor or an accredited client or end user. Okay, so the key details displayed on the certificate, the name of the person or entity, the authority license number, the exact address of the office and the warehouse facility, date of issuance and the expiry date, type of approved warehouse. For example, miscellaneous CBW ba siya, ICBW, etc. And the validity and renewal. So the validity period valid for 3 years, right? It is valid for 3 years. And renewal requirement, it can be renewed every 3 years, but only after passing a proper re-evaluation and getting a favorable recommendations from the CBW committee. Okay? Okay. Next, Certificate of Identification or CI. It is a official customs document that serves as a birth certificate for goods being exported from a CBW. Okay, so when a company imports raw materials duty-free, processes them into finished product and prepares to export those products, customs needs proof that the exported items actually came from a specific imported raw materials on record. Okay, so the certificate of identification serves two primary functions. The traceability, it links a specific batch of finished export products directly back to the original warehousing entry, the import declaration made when the raw materials first arrive, and the consumption tracking. No? It records how much of the original imported batch has been used, showing whether the imported entry is partially consumed or fully consumed. For example, in the import stage, a footwear manufacturers, this is a CBW, imports 1,000 meters ng premium leather, no, under the warehousing entry number WE-2026-005 duty free. Okay, so for the manufacturing stage, they use 400 meters only for this leather to manufacture 500 pairs of leather boots. Okay, so for the export and CI issuance stage, the company prepares to ship the 500 pairs of boots to Australia. Okay, before exports, a customs examiner verifies the shipment and issues a certificate of identifications. Okay, so what the CI states? These 500 pairs of boots were manufactured using 400 meters of leather imported under the warehousing entry number WE dash blah 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 blah. Okay, so the consumption status, the CI notes that warehousing entry number WE-2026-005 is partially consumed. No? 400 meters used, 600 meters remaining in stock. So the result, the CI is presented to customs during the liquidation process to prove that the imported raw materials were indeed exported as finished goods, allowing that portion of the tax or duty obligation and bond lock to be cleared. Okay? Next, Certificate of Importer Accreditation. Certificate of Importer Accreditation is an official document issued by the Bureau of Customs that grants a business or individual the legal status of a recognized accredited importer. So think of it as an importer passport or digital access pass. Without this accreditation, a company cannot legally import cargo into the country or interact with the government's customs system. Right? So the key functions of the certificate is the official registration. It proves that the business has undergone vetting, submitted its corporate or tax documents, and been approved by the Accounts Management Office of the Bureau. Okay, and also system access. Now, it authorizes the import to access the Bureau's online processing system or the E2M to electronically lodge the goods declaration or to submit import entries online for incoming shipments. Okay, next. Certificate of Inspection and Loading. This is an official document issued by the Bureau of Customs that acts as unmistakable proof that exported goods actually left the country. Okay, so when a CBW manufactures goods using duty-free imported raw materials, customs requires proof that those goods were truly exported and not secretly sold in the local market. Okay, so the CIL proves that proof by certifying two specific steps carried out under the uh, customs supervision. First is the inspection, right? So a customs officer inspected the physical cargo before the departure and the actual loading, right? So a customs officer witnessed and verified that the cargo was physically loaded onto the outbound ship or airplane or the exporting carrier. Okay, so this document is essential for the warehouse operator to clear or liquidate their import entries and release their bonded financial liability. Okay, for example, a Star Electronics CBW manufactures 5,000 laptops using imported duty-free processors. So they prepare to export these laptops to Singapore via cargo ship at the port of Manila. So what will be the process? So a customs inspector that examines the containers to confirm that they hold the declared 5,000 laptops. So that's the inspection. And the inspector stands on the pier and watches as the container crane lifts the cargo and places it aboard the vessel. Okay, so that's the actual loading. Okay, so the inspector fills out and signs the certificate of inspection of loading, recording the vessel name, the container numbers, date, and time of load. Okay, what will be the result? So this Star Electronics will submit this CIL back to the Bureau as definitive evidence that the laptops left the Philippines, allowing the Bureau to close the original raw materials import entry and cancel their corresponding bond. Okay, so that's the result. That next, client exporter is an individual or company, natural or juridical person that manufactures or export finished goods by sourcing their raw materials, accessories, or packing materials from a CBW or its accredited members. So instead of importing raw materials directly from foreign suppliers, the client exporter buys or receives duty-free materials locally from an authorized CBW operator. Okay, so because those raw materials or supplies were brought into the country tax and duty free, there's a condition. The client exporter is legally bound by one major rule. Okay, so the finished products must be exported out of the Philippines. Okay, within the specific time frame required by law, usually within 1 year under the CM3A. Okay, so they cannot turn around and sell those items to local Philippine shoppers unless import taxes and duties are paid first. So for example, a CBW supplier. So the Luzon Packaging and Accessory CBW imports the duty-free cardboard shipping boxes, plastic zippers, and brand tags from abroad. Okay, so the client exporter or the manufacturer, the Manila Apparel Corporation, is a registered local garment manufacturer. So what will be the operation? The Manila Apparel Corp buys the duty-free zippers, the brand tags, and shipping boxes from Luzon Packaging CBW. Okay, so they sew the zippers and tags onto the winter jackets they manufactured and pack them into the imported shipping boxes and ship the finished jackets out of buyers in Canada. What will be the result? Because the Manila Apparel acts as a client exporter and successfully exports the jackets within the legal time limit, no import duties or taxes are charged on those imported zippers, tags, and boxes throughout the entire supply chain. Okay? Next, CPRS or the Client Profile Registration System is a central online registration portal used by the Bureau. Okay? Adopted under DCMO 39-2008, it acts as the digital master directory for all stakeholders doing business with the Bureau. Okay, so think of CPRS as creating an official account or profile on a social media or e-commerce platform. So before any stakeholder such as importers, exporters, customs brokers, freight forwarders, or CBW operators can process shipments, they must create an official account in CPRS. Okay? So before they can process their shipments, before any stakeholder can process shipments, they must create an official account in CPRS. So once approved, the system generates a unique CPRS profile that links the business's tax details or the TIN, business permit, and authorized representatives directly to the Bureau's Electronic Processing System or the E2M. Okay, so without an active CPRS registration, a trader cannot file any import or export declaration electronically. Okay, compliance rate system or the CRS. This is an official evaluation procedure used by the Bureau to measure how well a CBW operator follows customs rules and regulations. Okay? So think of CRS as a report card or credit score system. Okay, for warehouse operators. So what will be the purpose of this CRS? It assesses the degree of compliance, how obedient and accurate a warehouse operator is regarding inventory tracking, reporting, export deadlines, and tax obligations. And what will be the impact on the license, on their license? So the score directly determines what happens to the warehouse's authority to operate, whether it gets renewed or extended, suspended, or revoked. Okay? And the development and oversight, it is developed by the Bureau, reviewed by the Department of Finance, and finalized after consulting with trade stakeholders. Who else it applies to? It is beyond main CBW operators. CRS scoring also applies to accredited members of the CCWs or the Customs Common Bonded Warehouses and accredited subcontractors. Okay? Next, Customs Bonded Warehouse CBW is a specialized facility licensed and authorized by the Bureau to import, receive, and store goods, or even raw materials, accessories, and packing materials without paying import duties and taxes upfront. Okay, so the term under bond means the warehouse operator posts a financial guarantee, a customs bond, to ensure that these tax-free items will be used strictly for export manufacturing and will not be leaked into the local market without proper tax payments. So what's the core purpose of the CBW? Manufacturing for export and for the account of the accredited exporters or clients. For the manufacturing for export, to import raw materials, accessories, or packing supplies, manufacture them into finished goods inside the warehouse, and export those finished product abroad. Okay, so that's the core purpose of the CBW. And also to store and supply those imported materials directly to accredited client exporters or end users who will perform the export manufacturing. Okay, next. Okay, so the Customs Bonded Warehouse Committee is the official regulatory body within the Bureau of Customs that evaluates, reviews, and acts upon all administrative applications concerning bonded warehouses. So think of the CBWC as the admissions board or licensing panel for bonded warehouses. Okay, so it is created specifically to oversee who gets allowed into the CBW ecosystem. And there are key responsibilities of the CBWC. First is reviewing applications to establish and operate new CBWs. They also evaluating applications to renew existing authorities to operate, processing applications to become a member of the Customs Common Bonded Warehouse, and approving applications to serve as an accredited subcontractor for a CBW. Okay? And also handling all the other official regulatory matters regarding the CBW operations. Okay? So before the Commissioner of Customs signs any final license or renewal certificate, the CBWC must first conduct thorough evaluations and also site inspections and compliance checks to make a favorable recommendation. Next, the customs bonded warehouse operator is an individual or company, natural juridical person that holds an official, jury approved, authorized to operate issued by the Bureau. So think of the CBW operator as the main franchise holder or license manager of a bonded facility. So they are legally accountable to the Bureau for all the goods entering, stored in, processed within, or existing their warehouse. Okay, they also guarantee that duties and taxes on stored raw materials will either be paid or properly cleared through valid re-exportation. Okay, so there is a special note on the CCBW, which is the mother warehouse. For the Customs Common Bonded Warehouse, the term CBW operator specifically refers to the mother warehouse. Okay, the mother warehouse acts as the primary licensee responsible for managing its accredited micro, small, or medium enterprises members. Okay, next, customs premises refers to any designated geographical area, facility, or physical infrastructures where the Bureau exercises exclusive control, direction, and management for enforcing the customs laws and processing import or export operations. So think of customs premises as the Bureau's jurisdictional home turf. Okay, whenever goods, transport equipment, or passengers enter these designated zones, they are automatically subject to customs supervisions, security protocols, and examination rules. So what falls under the customs premises? Administrative offices and the facilities. Customs collection, district buildings, and assessment office. And also the storage facilities and warehouses. So the CBWs of the container yards, customs facilities and warehouses, no? It's part of the storage facilities and warehouses. And also port of entry and maritime zones, all seaports, container terminals, wharves, piers, and so. Also airports, international passenger terminals, and air cargo clearance facilities. And the customs infrastructure. So inspection bays, X-ray scanning stations, and customs checkpoint zones. Okay. Next, diversion is a major violation of customs law that occurs when conditional duty-free imported cargo is legally rerouted away from its authorized intended destination and brought somewhere else. Okay? So when raw materials enter the country under the warehousing scheme, no duties or taxes are paid yet. Okay? Because the goods are supposed to go straight into a controlled area, such as CBW or free zone, or straight out of the country for export. Okay, so if someone intentionally changes the truck's route or unloads the cargo anywhere other than its declared approved location, diversion has occurred. Okay, so where diversion typically happens in transit to CBW or free zone. Let's say from the port of entry while on the way to a designated customs bonded warehouse or free zone enterprise. And also in transit for export from a CBW while on the way to the seaport or airport to be shipped out of the country. Okay? And because duties and taxes were conditionally waived, diverting the goods is treated as an attempt to smuggle duty-free goods into the local domestic markets. Next, entry. Alright, so in everyday language, entry just means coming through a door. But in customs law, entry is a broad concept that covers three distinct dimensions. Okay, the physical act to bringing imported goods physically into the Philippine customs territory. The documentation, which is the official forms, declarations in paperworks, or electronic lodgements submitted to the Bureau describing the cargo, its tariff classification, valuation, and origin. And the legal process. Okay? So, the entire procedure of submitting, assessing, paying duties and taxes, or securing a bond, inspecting, and clearing the goods. Okay? Notice that the definition explicitly includes goods coming from the free zones. Okay, under the Philippine trade law, specific economic zone or free zones like Clark, Zubik, or PEZA zones are legally treated as foreign territory for customs tax purposes. Therefore, when goods move out of a free zone and enter the physical customs territory of the Philippines, that movement is legally classified as an entry and requires full customs compliance. Okay, so that's for now. We will continue the discussion next meeting.